Welcome back. US President Donald Trump and his team reportedly made desperate attempts to suppress the publication of the memoir by his former national security advisor John Bolton. One leaked revelation from the book that was scheduled for next week suggested Trump did not know Britain had nuclear weapons. Another alleged Trump asked Chinese President Xi Jinping to help him win November's US general election. This all amidst anxious trade negotiations and fighting between the world's biggest armies on the India-China border. Joining me now from Beijing is a former translator for the architect of modern China, Deng Xiaoping. Professor Zhang Weiwei is director of the China Institute at Fudan University and joins me now. Thank you so much for joining us. Before I even get to those geopolitical issues, we've had maybe excess deaths of 60,000 plus. Tell me about this reported second spike at the Xinfadi seafood market, supplying, 90% of Beijing's fruit and vegetables?
It's a case which we pay very serious attention to. I hope it will be manageable. So far, so good, because we have already traced all the contacts, 300,000 something. And if you look at the confirmed cases, it's also dropping. It's only 21. Highly likely that it will be well contained. And after all, we have enough experience to do this.
I should just ask you about contact tracing, because we have way more cases than that, and we are ending our lockdown, and you have a complete lockdown. How do you view how coronavirus has affected Britain, where we've had maybe more than 60,000 excess deaths?
Well, to be honest, I think UK and the Western countries should learn a bit from China. And we take this deadly serious. We think it's a matter of life and death, and people's lives come first, not business interest. So with this in mind, we try to trace every case and treat. That's the Chinese experience, which has been proved working very well, both within China and in many other countries.
Well, obviously, the news here is less actually about any advice China might have on coronavirus. The reporting here is you're at war with India. 20 Indian soldiers killed in the Himalayan Galwan Valley by the People's Liberation Army. What do you know about the clash of nuclear powers?
Actually, from the information I can collect, it's up to now still a kind of fist-to-fist fight. It's not gun shooting, not killing by guns. Obviously, both sides want to control the damage. On the whole, it's about peaceful solution to this dispute. And personally, I think maybe it had to do with India's domestic reason. Perhaps, I don't know, it has to do with the fight against COVID-19 that's going on not very well. Because now India has all of a sudden all the border skirmishes with China, Nepal, and Pakistan. I don't know, it's a kind of attempt to divert people's attention for a while. But I don't think India tried to launch a war. But definitely, this particular incident occurred within the Chinese line of control. So it's India's troops entering into Chinese.
Well, we hope to be speaking to the Indian High Commissioner, but that's not at all how the defense minister put it. He said the nation will never forget their bravery and sacrifice of the dead soldiers. And the Indian Foreign Minister, Anurag Srivastava, said this was an attempt by the Chinese side to unilaterally change the status quo.
What I concern about is really this particular incident has occurred within the line of control of the Chinese side. Eventually, perhaps the satellite map will show this. So obviously, it's a provocation from the Indian side. So far, I read the talk by two foreign ministers. Both talk about peaceful solution to this dispute. This is a good sign.
Well, the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman, Zhao Lijian, did say it was a provocation from India's side. Can you, putting your geopolitical hat on as a keen observer of these things, can you see how NATO nations might encourage or certainly could be accused of being pleased by a fight between superpowers of the future like India and China? India apparently using US intelligence to claim that 35 PLA troops were casualties in this clash.
Apparently, there is this element of so-called Indo-Pacific alliance advocated by the United States. But from my knowledge, India is also very cautious on this Indo-Pacific alliance. India did not want to choose between China and the United States. And after all, China is India's largest trading partner. And I don't think militarily India India can fight a war and win. Both sides will reach a peaceful settlement. Of course, the border disputes between the two countries have been going on for decades. It will not be resolved easily.
Yeah, but this is the first time for 50 years that we've seen this many deaths on the border. This comes after another nuclear nation, Pakistan's government, allied to China, saying that India is provoking confrontation over Kashmir, which of course also involves the People's Republic.
China's position on Kashmir is very clear, and we hope there will be a peaceful solution to the disputes, which are dispute between India, China, and between India and Pakistan. And so we have a long vision. Ultimately, India, Pakistan, and China should develop a normal economic ties. We told our Indian friends, I was there, for about 2 weeks last year. We had discussions with India think tanks. I think, the message is very clear. It's in the interest of both China and India to maintain good relations rather than fall into the trap of this Indo-Pacific alliance. I still think mainly it's out of domestic political concerns that India provoked this small and limited skirmish. Yeah.
Is this all useful, though, for Mike Pompeo meeting with Yang Jiechi in Hawaii when he talks about trade with China, given this narrative that China is isolated?
Actually, I read the news report briefly. It's obvious the two sides have really huge difference on Hong Kong, on Taiwan, and on Xinjiang. Both sides stated their differences openly, candidly, which is good, But on the other hand, both sides said they will try to implement the consensus. Essentially, two sides decided to have some kind of cooperation in fighting the COVID-19 and also to promote bilateral trade.
The big story internationally, arguably, has been a book by Donald Trump's former National Security Advisor, John Bolton. I mean, there have been many reports that Donald Trump is fighting his own military-industrial complex. What do you make of these supposed revelations denied by Trump that he asked for Xi Jinping's help in winning November's U.S. election?
I read interesting passage about this conversation between Trump and Xi Jinping. Apparently, Trump said he should help our agricultural sector buy more soybeans, which is whatever. Of course, I haven't seen a reaction from Donald Trump.
Yeah, you mentioned the fight there on COVID-19, but Pentagon officials quoted in U.S. media a warning of Chinese economic warfare exploiting coronavirus, exploiting supplies of bio-warfare protection equipment. Here in Britain, the British government is talking about China somehow having to pay for coronavirus there in recent weeks.
What can you do? When China was not active in international politics or less active, they would say China was a free rider. When China became slightly more active, it became Chinese, assertion, more assertive. So we just do whatever we think is necessary. At this moment, there is a global consensus, except the United States. We should have really international community acting in a unified way, attacking our common enemy, COVID-19. And China does its best to help others.
Here in Britain, again, the foreign minister here, Dominic Raab, Boris Johnson's foreign minister, attacking HSBC for backing the Hong Kong government. The only thing that perhaps can take the George Floyd protests off the news here is rioting in Hong Kong. What do you make of Britain trying to offer passports to Chinese citizens in Hong Kong?
No, this is a very silly decision. I don't think that passport will be very attractive to many Hong Kongers. In the first place, it's essentially a travel document, not a work permit. I remember when Deng Xiaoping went to the United States for the first time in 1979, when he had an encounter with Jimmy Carter, then the US president. The US president asked about China's ban on immigration. And Deng Xiaoping asked, how many millions of people you want?
Well, I mean, the ambassador here, China's ambassador here, was pretty forthright, Liu Xiaoming.
Yeah.
Do you think this is Dominic Raab doing U.S. dirty work? Because the ambassador here said to the British government, don't do this dirty work, dirty job for someone else, when Britain sent, the Royal Navy sent its HMS Elizabeth aircraft carrier to the Spratly Islands.
The British should remember and should know by now this era of colonial domination or dominance is already over, and history has already turned the corner. So when China decided to push forward with this Hong Kong version of national security law, it's a done deal. Whether the United States or British try to intervene or not, no way. After all, they've experienced almost 1 year of chaos, and the economy suffered badly, almost destroyed. So now, of this kind of chaos, prolonged chaos, many people came to their senses.
You mentioned colonialism. In fairness to Britain, statues of slave traders are coming down. Do you think the Chinese would like statues in Britain of people who peddled drugs to China, killing so many Chinese people when Britain was one of the big drug-dealing nations of the world? Would want those statues of those peddlers to come down?
No, indeed. In the first place, this kind of demonstrations, this Black Lives Matter movement in the UK reveals a kind of deep-rooted grievances about, obviously, racism ingrained in the British economic, political, and social life. I think it's understandable people have really bad feelings about this statue. This kind of symbols reminds people of the ugly history of colonialism. Chinese also have a sharp memory of that. So don't be too arrogant and as if you were still colonial power and can dictate matters in Hong Kong. No way. Yeah.
Professor Zhang Weiwei, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for the show. We'll be back on Monday to further investigate the source of coronavirus with Big Farm's Big Flu author Rob Wallace. Until then, wash your hands. Join the Underground on YouTube, SoundCloud, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.